Hey everyone, welcome to this new episode of the Explicitly Pro-Life podcast. I'm Kristin Hawkins. This week is a little different. We are going to be airing a Facebook Live discussion that I had with my friend just a few days ago, Abby Johnson. Abby was the director of a Planned Parenthood in College Station, Texas. And many of you all know her. She is kind of the most infamous or famous convert from the abortion industry into the pro-life movement. She's written a book on Planned. She was the subject of a movie that Students for Life and many pro-life organizations promoted just last spring. Abby and I had a discussion, and we've been at Students for Life, we've been trying to pivot and make sure we're offering as many discussions and training opportunities right now, since many of us are home in quarantine. The Hawkins family, by the way, is in midst of week 4, so pray for me. But we're trying to have a lot of these discussions and training opportunities right now where we're home, because we know our mission isn't stopping. Planned Parenthood certainly is not stopping during the coronavirus crisis. As you all know, if anything, they're trying to take advantage of the crisis to ram through things that they've been trying to do for years, like getting restrictions and very common sense safety standards on the toilet bowl abortions, RU486. There was a letter last week urging the Department of Health and Human Services to make toilet bowl abortions available to everyone. And so Planned Parenthood's certainly not stopping their business, and we can't be stopping our work as pro-life activists. In fact, this kind of right now with coronavirus, with Planned Parenthood can't be on campuses, and neither can we, but it sort of neutralizes Planned Parenthood's ability to reach young people, which is why we need to be doing more than ever before, and why I haven't been sleeping, because we've been launching all sorts of new websites and training opportunities, everything digital, with our pivot strategies. But the discussions we're having on Facebook every week, I've been hosting, and I'm going to continue to host with just different pro-life leaders, different training opportunities for you. And I really want to come to you this week and air a conversation I just had with Abby Johnson about what Planned Parenthood's doing right now. I mean, who better to kind of talk about what Planned Parenthood's strategy is than with a former director and Planned Parenthood Employee of the Year. So we're going to talk about what Planned Parenthood's doing during this coronavirus crisis, but we're also going to talk a little bit more about what you can do as a pro-life activist, no matter your age, if a Planned Parenthood or abortion facility is in your community, how you can get involved. There's going to be some practical steps, and then we're also going to be talking about how you can talk to your friends and family members about abortion, about Planned Parenthood. You know that the whole thing we've heard before from our pro-choice friends of, well, they only do 3% abortions, and Planned Parenthood does a lot of good services too, right? And that's a rebuttal that we all need to have on the tip of our tongue. So Abby talks about that in this discussion, and I also had Abby kind of talk for us a little bit. And I've been meaning to do a full show on this, and I'm sad I haven't. And this is kind of giving me the urging to do that. But Abby talks at the end of this discussion about Planned Parenthood's kind of motivation to get into the public school system, their sex ed curriculum, and how they indoctrinate our young people. At Students for Life, we call it, their predatory business cycle, right? Meet young people as early as possible, get in with them, build a relationship with them, and get them into their doors as fast as possible. And then hopefully get them to come back multiple times throughout the course of that kind of their, sexual life. So Abby talks about that, and some of the information that she gives in this discussion, I think you will find very illuminating, something that you should be passing on to pro-life family and friends, and making sure everyone knows this information. Learn it, memorize it, and then start having discussions with pro-choice family and friends about Planned Parenthood and their just egregious business model. So I hope you'll listen in and enjoy this podcast. Just know this was recorded online, so the audio quality is not going to be as good as what you usually expect from me, but I hope you'll bear with me, and I think you're going to enjoy this. And make sure you tune in next week for Explicitly Pro-Life for another episode. I might air another discussion I just had tonight, because I think you're going to want to hear it. Thanks, guys. Hey everyone, it's Kristin Hawkins. Welcome to this very first Facebook Live Pro-Life Under Quarantine training. I want to thank everyone for getting on tonight and joining us for the special time. We have a very special guest, a good friend of mine, Abby Johnson, founder of And Then There Were None Ministries and also Pro-Life Ministries, Pro-Love Ministries. Abby's going to be getting on in a few moments, and we're going to be talking about Planned Parenthood and how you can make an impact in your community, on your campuses, to defund the abortion Goliath, to fight back, to stop their marketing towards our generation. And there's actually a lot of things. I think sometimes when we talk about Planned Parenthood and this mega abortion Goliath, it kind of seems overwhelming, like there's so much to do and, it's just me, or it's just my Students for Life group or my Right to Life group. What can I do? Well, the fact is there's a lot you can do. And Abby's going to be talking about that tonight. Abby was a former director of Planned Parenthood, as you all know. Hopefully you've all kind of read Abby's story in her Unplanned book and also watched the movie. But just to get started, I want to kind of go over why we as a pro-life movement need to be talking about Planned Parenthood, why we need to focus time and attention on Planned Parenthood. They are the nation's largest abortion vendor. They are committing a third of all abortions that happen in the United States. They performed 345,000 abortions last year, and they received $616 million of our taxpayer funds. Every single day, Planned Parenthood receives over $1 million from us, the taxpayer, and they commit 946 abortions. 946 abortions. It's unbelievable. So they're the kind of leader of abortion in the United States. They're the ones that, anytime a pro-life law gets passed in states, or states say you have to shut down right now because there's a coronavirus pandemic and we need to conserve precious PPE, personal protection equipment, and we shouldn't be allowing non-essential businesses to operate to stop the spread of coronavirus. They're the ones who file the lawsuits, who try to bypass the will of the people, bypass elected officials, and go right to judges, activist judges that are in their pocket. They're the ones kind of pushing the abortion industry mantra and their messaging for. They spent more than $76 million last year on advocacy. They spent $13 million on engaging in communities, $54 million on their sex education, which, by the way, always leads you back to Planned Parenthood. They spent $45 million in the 2018 elections and have already promised to spend at least that in the 2020 election. So they're kind of the little leader. They're the message driver. Not only are they committing the most abortions in the United States, but they're driving the abortion narrative. They're pushing for the legislation to make abortion laws the most extreme they can be, which is abortion all 9 months of pregnancy for whatever reason. And you've seen their victories in states like New York, their attempts in states like Virginia. So they're the ones leading the charge. And then the whole time when you're on campuses or when you're having a discussion with someone about Planned Parenthood, you always hear, well, abortions is just a small percentage of what they do. They do all of these good things. Well, the fact is 96% of pregnant women who walk into Planned Parenthood doors will get an abortion. All of their services, if you look at Planned Parenthood's own annual report, you don't have to look very far. You can see all of their quote unquote good services continue to decline. But the only thing that continues to increase year after year after year is their abortions. And that's directly the result of their increase in federal funding. So there's a lot we need to talk about. And we need to focus on Planned Parenthood and why as we as the pro-life movement need to have laser focus on defunding the nation's largest abortion Goliath, and hopefully putting them out of business. And the good news is Students for Life and Pro-Life Gen members across the country are taking action. Just this last year, we saw 13 Planned Parenthood facilities shut down. Students for Life leaders active in Birmingham, Alabama, working with a local group there, CEC for Life, to slow down the construction of a new abortion facility. In Port St. Lucie, Florida, Students for Life, student leaders, and local Right to Life and community members have been working hand in hand, going to city council meetings, hosting rallies, sending hundreds of phone calls into the mayor and city council's office to delay the construction of a new abortion facility there in Kansas City, Kansas. It's been 7 months since a new Planned Parenthood was supposed to open. That's never opened. And the Students for Life leaders haven't been silent. They've refused to quit. And that is what we need you to do. We need you to understand, as a pro-life leaders and activists on the ground, why you should focus on Planned Parenthood, what the damage they're doing in your community, not only ending preborn little girl and little boys' lives every day, but harming women, how they're, trapping young people in their predatory business cycle. But we also need you, and we want you to understand that you can make a difference. And so that is why I've asked my good friend, Abby Johnson. Abby's going to be joining us here in a second. Abby was the director of a Planned Parenthood. She runs and founds, and then there were non-ministries and also pro-life ministries. And so when we think about expert of Planned Parenthood, who better talk to than Abby Johnson? So Abby, thanks for joining me tonight.
Of course. I'm glad to be here.
Well, hey, I wanted you to come on, and there's been a lot of talk right now about this stop the spread of should abortion facilities be open right now, and is an abortion really an essential practice? Can you talk a little bit about what the latest is going on in these states and some of these governors who have said no, abortion is not essential? Duh.
Yeah. So the first that we saw was Ohio. So we had Ohio, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and now, as of recently, Maryland. So there have been 5 states so far. I feel like, states are sort of being added every day. These governors are saying, no, this is not essential health care. This is an elective procedure. The interesting thing is that I've been looking at what people are saying on Twitter, these abortion advocates, and they're like, abortion is no more elective than childbirth. And I'm thinking, do you not understand what the word elective means? I mean, you literally can't stop childbirth from happening. Like, if you're going to birth a child, it's going to happen if it's the right time. Abortion is always elective, but they're really trying hard. It's interesting because they're, on one hand, for all these years, they've been saying abortion's no big deal. It's a nothing. You're aborting a nothing. It's just tissue. And so they've been downplaying the significance of abortion for many, many years. And now all of a sudden, abortion is it's imperative that abortion continue. Well, which is it? Is it a nothing or is it essential? I mean, you can't have it both ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like this hurry. Now they have to admit that maybe there's something wrong with killing babies, because it's like, well, we have to hurry up and do it right now. And a woman can't wait weeks to have her abortion. Why not? If it's nothing, why can't she wait 2 weeks to have her abortion? Oh, because the baby grows. It's more expensive. It's harder to commit those abortions.
Well, and the women we know that the longer a woman waits and really contemplates her decision, the more likely she is to continue her pregnancy, which is exactly why NARAL and Planned Parenthood and NAF, they rail against abortion waiting periods. So, most states, there's a 24-hour waiting period. Some states, it's 48 hours. Some, it's even 72 hours. Well, they hate that. Because they know that the longer a woman contemplates this decision, the more time she has to actually look over her options, the more likely she is to carry her baby to term. And they need to capitalize on a woman and her moment of vulnerability, where she's, in crisis, she's on, her brain is on a high-speed train, and she's just trying to take care of the problem. And that's what they're trying to capitalize on. So giving a woman a whole month, right? Say, these governors are saying, no, you can't perform abortions for a whole month. We know that there are going to be many, many women who end up choosing life for their children. Not to mention, it's a huge blow to their financials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's absolutely right. I saw an email right before we went live of Planned Parenthood here in my state of Pennsylvania actually soliciting donations for PPE, for personal protective equipment. They asked for hand sanitizer. They asked for homemade masks, so homemade sewn masks, which aren't hygienic and don't do anything. When you were a director of Planned Parenthood and there was like a national catastrophe, I don't know if you had this situation happen to you, but did you all have protocol to, donate some of your masks or surgical gowns to hospitals? Or were there ever any conversations about that? Or were you trying to like hoard all of those materials for yourselves?
It's I've been talking to some people about this because, there were people, pro-lifers that just have really good hearts. And they were saying, Abby, don't you think the abortion clinics, don't you think they're going to do the right thing and donate this PPE? Don't you see that we're in a state of crisis? They're going to do the right thing, right? And my answer was, I wish that were true. I wish that they would see the crisis that we're in. I wish that they would donate this PPE. And honestly, they should. I feel like the president needs to come out and say, hey, you are essentially a government funded organization. We are paying for this PPE that's in their centers right now. And I feel like, President Trump should say, hey, you need to donate it. You need to hand it over because it's our PPE. We're the ones that are paying for it, right?
Great point.
But I think that no, they're not going to make the right decision. I remember during Hurricane Katrina, I was working the relief effort after hours, and I was going into the triage centers. We were taking people off of buses from the Astrodome, and it was, very conditions we can't even really imagine that these people had been living in. And I was going to work the relief effort, and I was asking my coworkers, like, hey, they need nurses. They need people, because I'm not a medical person. I don't have a license. So, but they were utilizing me. I said, they really need doctors and nurses to come and work this effort. Will you come and donate some of your time? And, the answer was always no, And then I went to my supervisor and said, look, they need gloves. They're running out of gloves. They're running out of masks. Every woman coming in, they had some sort of infection, a bacterial infection or a yeast infection. They need meds. We've got hundreds of pills just piled up in our closets that are going to expire because we don't give them out fast enough. Can we donate these? And the answer over and over again was no. No, we can't do that. That's for us. But we can give them a discounted abortion. That was the only thing that they were willing to do. Not a free abortion, but we could take like $50 off the cost of an abortion if they wanted that.
Holy cow. We saw tweets like that right before it got really bad in like LA and New York started kind of imposing quarantines. We saw people, associated with Planned Parenthood saying, hurry up, come stock up on your birth control. And, we don't want any like accidents to happen. Because there's going to be those corona babies. I think it's going to be amazing to have a baby boom from the corona quarantine. There's all kinds of names that have been funny names for these children have been developed. But it's unbelievable that, and I think it's hard, I think sometimes for us as pro-lifers to kind of understand that is the mentality there, that it's an industry, it's a corporation that's making a profit, turning a profit, and sometimes operating on thin profit margins. And so shutting down for 2 weeks could be very detrimental to their business. We saw just last night, there was a fight in the U.S. Senate in the coronavirus relief bill. They wanted to allow Planned Parenthood to be eligible for small business loans. They already receive government money through Medicaid, but they wanted to be eligible for small business loans so they could stay afloat. It was unbelievable. And they actually had the audacity to tweet out how it was 3 pro-life male senators who stopped this from happening. So I think it's hard sometimes for us to put ourselves in the shoes of those who work in the abortion industry, and just how callous I think it sometimes it becomes, despite someone's best intentions when they may start. Okay,
Yeah.
so
And I do think we need to talk about that quickly. The stimulus bill. There's a lot of people. I think people that are confused, and particularly students, because they're hearing from the media that it's these meanie old Republicans that don't want to extend help for people during this crisis. And everybody needs to hear that that's absolutely not true. The reason that the Republicans were holding up this bill is because the previous stimulus package was going to fund the abortion industry by $1 billion. Okay, $1 billion. The abortion industry has nothing to do with testing or treating coronavirus. Okay. In fact, they are part of the problem. I mean, they're not keeping social distancing inside of their clinics. They're packing these women and men into their clinics. Some clinics performing, up to 60 abortions a day. So you've got 100 people packed into a small clinic, standing room only. They're not helping to prevent the spread of COVID-19. They're actually contributing to it. And yet here's the Democratic government these Democratic representatives wanting to give $1 billion to the abortion industry. People need to understand what's going on here. It's not these mean old Republicans who just don't want to unhand money. This is, it's everybody, says coronavirus, but this has really turned into corona politics as well. And, people are trying to make sure that the money that's being given, that the stimulus package is actually going to help people that need help, that it's not funding corrupt industries like the abortion industry.
That's exactly right. I mean, I think that just shows you, they were, at one point, I think it was AOC was like, pro-lifers are holding up the stimulus bill. I was like, no. You are holding it up because you're refusing to ensure that the Hyde Amendment, which is law, applies to this bill. You're choosing that, not us. It's unbelievable. Can you explain a little bit the funding pathways at Planned Parenthood? So they're getting $616 million. Now, President Trump issued the Protect Life rule, which prohibits Planned Parenthood receiving Title X funds, which defunded them, like $50-60 million. But that was pretty small compared to the $600 million they're getting. Can you explain the pathways that Planned Parenthood's getting our tax dollars?
Sure, yeah. So the largest government-funded pathway is through Medicaid. So traditional Medicaid programs, what we call Title 19 programs. So most title programs are cash grant programs. However, the Title 19 program it's a never-ending fund, never-ending pool of money that goes to whoever is billing Medicaid. It's by and large pretty unrestricted, and it's really unregulated. So Planned Parenthood is receiving the bulk of their funding from that traditional Medicaid Title 19 program. Some states have what's called a Medicaid waiver program. They're also receiving money from that, which is just another Title 19 program. They also were previously receiving Title X grants, which was it's a cash fund grant. Now they're not receiving that anymore. However, there are other pots of money. So there's a Title 20 program, which is a contraceptive management program, that they're receiving a huge amount of money from Title 20. They're receiving Title 5. It's a pretty small amount of money, but they are receiving Title 5 funds. They're receiving HIV grant money. There's, a lot of funds that are coming in from the government, but the largest are going to be Title 19, which is traditional Medicaid or Medicaid waiver, Title 10, which they no longer receive, and Title 20. So the important thing that was done with the Title 10 funding is that it basically set a precedent. So now the hope is that President Trump will be able to defund them from other pots of cash grant funds. So Title 20 would be the next that would make the most sense for him to go after.
Okay. I mean, that's essentially what we want in the pro-life movement is we want Planned Parenthood fully defunded. And we've been very clear about those intentions. And while we're grateful that the president defunded them with $60 million, there's still a long way to go. Can you talk a little bit, since we're talking about their funding, there's a lot of talk right now. I think when we're talking about COVID, they're trying to, the abortion industry as a whole is trying to use, they're trying to use this crisis to, advance their radical agenda. We already saw tweets and other statements saying, this is why we need telemed abortions and this is why we need mail order abortions. Is that what's next for the abortion industry, of where they're shifting to next? Are they kind of showing the cards right now?
Yeah, definitely. This has been at play for a long time. There's websites currently out right now that will mail you abortion pills. And it's actually a more dangerous regimen because it's a regimen that does not use mifeprex, which is the pill that actually kills the baby. It's just using misoprostol. So what that means is that you're actually delivering a baby that's alive. That dies during the birth, the abortion. So it's incredibly more dangerous. It's riskier for women, but this is what they're advocating, right? And so you hear these abortion supporters say, we're trying to prevent back alley abortions. We're trying to prevent women doing at-home abortions. What do they think medication abortion is? It's an at-home abortion procedure. And from every reliable study that we see that the medication abortion has about a 20% complication rate, serious complication rate, which usually means that surgical intervention must take place. That's a high risk. 20% is high. And that's why with what's happened with these governors, they're making it clear that this also includes medication abortion, because when there's a 20% chance that surgical abortion is going to be needed, then you have to ban medication abortion as well.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Because you can't have women rushing into the emergency room when you're trying to free up beds for COVID patients. Right. Because this medication abortion, toilet bowl abortion, we call them, didn't work well. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk about what are some concrete actions that pro-lifers can take in their community, on their campuses to, harm Planned Parenthood's business, to reduce the number of clients that they see, reduce their influence. Besides, always voting pro-life first, hashtag vote pro-life first, holding your elected officials accountable and continue to kind of hit that drum of defund Planned Parenthood. What can someone do right in their community?
So if you have an abortion center in your community, one of the most powerful things that you can do is to go out to the sidewalk of that facility. Look, I said this in Unplanned. This was a line in Unplanned. It's absolutely true. The last Planned Parenthood conference I went to was in 2009. And I went into a breakout session that was called anti-choice harassment, right? So that's all of us on the sidewalk. And they looked at the rates of appointments. They looked at no-show rates. So these are women that have appointments for abortions, but then just don't show up for whatever reason. They don't call, they don't show up. And what they found was that when there are people praying outside of an abortion facility, that no-show rate can go as high as 75%. And people say, well, why would that make such a difference? Well, because you're showing them that what they are about to do, that walking into that facility, something about that is morally objectionable, right? Mm-hmm. I have never gone to my dentist office where there have been people holding up signs like, don't fill your cavity, right? Because that's totally a normal thing to do. Nobody is objecting against me going in and getting my cavity filled, right? Mm-hmm. But you're showing them that something is not right. And I can't tell you how many times people have come up to us on the sidewalk and they've said, you know what, I'm not going to have an abortion today. I prayed all the way here that God would give me a sign. And you are that sign. You are the sign that I was looking for, and I'm not going to have that abortion. So you don't even realize how powerful just your presence is on the sidewalk. One of the things I also encourage people to do, and this is effective even during this quarantine time. A lot of times moms will ask me, stay-at-home moms, stay-at-home dads will say, what can I do? I'm at home all day with kids. Well, first of all, raising your children to be pro-life warriors is just about the best pro-life thing that you can ever do, okay, for your kids. So don't ever discount that. That's important. The most important job. But secondly, if you do have some free time, as if stay-at-home parents ever have free time. But if you do have some free time, one of the things I encourage people to do is to go on different websites. So pregnancy websites, so thebump.com, babycenter.com. There are chat boards inside of these websites. And you can find dozens of posts in there, women considering having abortions. They're contemplating abortion. And this is a great opportunity for you not to go in there and say, don't murder your baby, right? But for you to go in there and to say, hey, I don't know if you've looked at the resources in your community. I checked out, there's a pregnancy center where you live. Maybe you could go by there. I could even make a call for you, whatever. Let them know about the resources that are available. Let them know about our ministry, Loveline. We can help them as well. So that's a really great place to be an advocate online. And also during this quarantine, this is really a time for us to get our messaging right. So, watch these sorts of training videos, and there's going to be more to come from Students for Life. Listen to those of us who are doing YouTube videos, trying to give you information. This is a time for us to really hone in on our arguments and figure out how to best defend the pro-life message online, because we don't want to do it in a poor way that turns people away from us. We want to draw people toward us. And so, this is a great time for you to really take advantage of these training programs that are out there.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And I have a follow-up question to you about sidewalk counseling, but you just gave me a good plug to mention. If you go to studentsforlifehq.com, any pro-lifer, any activist of any age can go in, and then we have a whole online training portal right now. You can start watching videos, downloading step-by-step event guides, and it's on all pillars of pro-life activism: industry impact, which is what we're talking today, supportive services, how you can transform campuses and communities to support pregnant and parenting students, rapid response, public policy, effective education. I also encourage you, if you're a student, you can go to studentsforlife.org/digital. We're actually running a 5-week free virtual training course. This week we've trained over 700 students so far, and we've got 4 more weeks to go. So you can go to studentsforlife.org/virtual and sign up. And there's a bunch of new stuff that I'm not allowed to tell you, or my team will get mad at me about. But we've been nonstop at Students for Life, pivoting from campuses to computers and giving you all the tools. We have a website, studentsforlife.org/abortion-question, and that's a place where you can direct any pro-choice friend or family member. And we actually have 2 team members standing by 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. every single day. Will answer any question you have about abortion, the pro-life movement. And so these are staff members that are on campuses every day. So there's plenty you can do to start having those conversations. Getting back to what you mentioned about sidewalk counseling, I wanted to ask you, where are some of the best resources people can go for sidewalk counseling to learn more? And also, we had someone who posted a question and saying that she had just started sidewalk counseling for the past 2 months. Sometimes women take literature, sometimes they don't. But she wanted to know if there was anything she could say to help make the women open more up to her and talk to her more.
Yeah. So, I always encourage people to reach out to Sidewalk Advocates for Life. They have absolutely the best program out there for sidewalk counseling, and not just for sidewalk counseling, but also really just sort of, figuring out like pro-life apologetics, how to best reach out to people who maybe you're wearing this happens to me all the time. I'm wearing like a pro-life shirt at Costco or something, and somebody comes up to me and says, "Oh, I saw your shirt," and they have a question. So it's really just sort of pro-life apologetics as well that you're learning there, learning about fetal development, and learning about how to counsel outside of abortion facilities, learning how to reach out to the workers. After women have had abortions, we can't just show up and try to save their baby. We've got to be there even after they've had the abortion, so that they know that there are resources available to them. Because when they do start to have regret, the abortion industry won't be there for them. So they need to know where they can go. The other thing I was going to say about locally is, right now, pregnancy centers, many of them are still operating. They're still seeing patients. They're still handing out supplies, and these pregnancy centers, they still need you. So they need you to, call them, find out, are there any supplies that you can send them through Amazon or send them through Walmart.com? Your online giving button still works on your computer. So even if you don't want to run a check over, they still need your support. So, all of us, the pro-life movement in general, this is a very key moment for us in the pro-life movement to really get better, to train ourselves better. And to do good work. I mean, crisis pregnancies aren't stopping, guys, just because crisis pregnancies aren't in quarantine. There's probably going to be more actually because of this. And we have to be sort of a rapid response team. So don't forget that, we still need your help. We still need your assistance. We still need your gifts. And we definitely still need your prayers during this time.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. And I have a couple more questions for Abby, but if you all have questions who are listening in this conversation, you can write your comments and questions below. And our team is getting me those questions. So I'm seeing them filter in. Abby, thinking about, how do you, as a pro-life activist, I guess, best set yourself up to, if you don't have a Planned Parenthood in your community, how do you set yourself up to know when Planned Parenthood's getting ready to come in? And then what are the first steps you would take if you found out or you thought Planned Parenthood or another abortion facility was going to come into your community?
Yeah. So I always encourage activists to have an account on things like Indeed.com, Monster.com. They will start posting they'll start posting job ads. And that's how, we find out a lot of times if they're coming. We also encourage people, especially pro-life groups. So maybe legislative groups or activist groups, Coalition for Life groups in their community. You can actually pull permits. You can, through different government offices, but you find out who holds the permits in your county, in your city, and you can do a public information request. You can ask for permits to be sent to you. A lot of times they're going to start building under an LLC, but you can look up who owns an LLC. You can do a little research. It's actually sort of fun, a little sleuthing. We've been able to find out that Planned Parenthood is coming, even if they're building under an LLC, just based on who owns the LLC and how they're involved with Planned Parenthood. So that's, a little more technical, but that is something that you can do. Definitely finding out about their job search plans on Indeed, those sites. When you find out, you have to start moving quickly. You have to start organizing very quickly. When you do start seeing those job listings come, you need to immediately start pulling permits, find out different places, what makes sense. Where would a Planned Parenthood make sense in this community? Does this permit make sense? Does this one not? You can start, you need to start organizing together. Maybe you do that through your church. Maybe you do it through local pro-life groups in your area. Maybe you have a 40 Days for Life or a Sidewalk Advocates group that you get together and do stuff. Once you find out where it's going to be, okay, once you find out they're permitting for this space, you need to start working with pregnancy centers in your area. Can they open a satellite clinic that's close to that facility? It doesn't have to be huge, but maybe just like a 2-room little office that's close. You can start sending out flyers in that neighborhood. You need the neighborhood to be your ally in this fight. You need to get them involved as well. Neighbors, can say, look, we don't want an abortion clinic in our neighborhood. Even people who are pro-choice will be like, I don't want that coming through my neighborhood, right? I don't want people standing out here and protesting when I'm driving in my neighborhood, right? And you can tell them that, like, hey, we're going to be here every day. So is this really what you want in your community, right? And a lot of them will join your team as well. So, there's a lot of different ways that you can sort of get ahead of Planned Parenthood. If Planned Parenthood believes that a community does not want them there, they generally won't come. And so you've got to start having community meetings. You have to start having, city council meetings. You've got to start you have to start getting involved. It's hard work to keep a Planned Parenthood from opening. You've got to look at zoning restrictions. A lot of times they'll open up in a district that's not actually zoned for surgeries to take place. So they'll try to fight against that. You've got to look at all that kind of stuff. So if you're a student, you're probably going to need like your parents or some people to help you, people who are architects, people who work for the city to sort of help you start pulling these permits and to figure things out. But it's actually really kind of fun to run down that rabbit trail and to figure out what's going on. And you can also show people in the community, this is what abortion clinics, this is the type of service that they offer. So you can go to our website called checkmyclinic.org. We have combined inspection reports from all across the country for every abortion facility that's inspected. Regularly, we have any failed inspection reports on that website. Go to your community, see if that particular affiliate that's coming into your community has failed inspection reports. Start blasting those out as much as you can, sending them out to the media, writing op-eds, writing letters to the editor. You've got to just make a lot of noise. When I worked at Planned Parenthood, we had actually been, Warren Buffett had given us a bunch of money to open up a clinic in Huntsville, Texas. And they found out, the pro-life group found out there that we were going to be opening a clinic. And even a lot of pro-choice supporters, they started going to the community meetings and they would say, look, we like abortion. We like it over in Houston. Okay. We don't want it in our community of Huntsville,
That'll affect
Texas.
my real estate value.
That's right. That's right. And so they made such a stink, got the paper involved, had news reporters involved. They made such a stink that we ended up pulling out and giving the grant money back. And we didn't open up a clinic.
Wow. That's surprising. I wrote that down because that was surprising to me. You're saying if a community doesn't want them, they just won't put up the fight, essentially. I find that's really good information. What do you tell parents? So this is something we've been working on at Students for Life, is kind of a sex ed opt-out plan of how parents do have the right to opt their children out of sex ed. In most states, I think California, I think in Washington and Colorado are the ones trying to make that illegal. But we know Planned Parenthood is involved in a lot of these states' sex ed curriculums. And I think it's a smart business decision for them, because the sooner they get in front of these young girls and men, the more likely they're going to be to visit their clinic and continue to visit them and kind of start that cycle. But what do you say to parents? Like, how do they find out where kind of the sex ed, who's teaching the sex ed and Planned Parenthood's involved, and how do they fight back?
Yeah. So first of all, parents, you have got to get involved with your kids' education. I mean, you cannot sit on the sidelines and trust the school to do a good job of educating your kids. You just can't. Whether it's public school, whether it's private school, whether it's parochial school, I don't care. You have got to be the primary educators and influencers in your children's lives. So stop being lazy, go to the school board meetings. Every district has something called a school health advisory committee, and it may be called something different. It varies from state to state. Those are open meetings to the public. And this is a group of people, they decide on health education curriculum. They decide on the sex ed curriculum. You have every right as a parent to review that curriculum. They cannot withhold that from you. So you have every right to review that curriculum, to find out who wrote the curriculum. You can Google all of that stuff, find out where it came from. Even if it doesn't have Planned Parenthood's name on it, the overwhelming majority of sex ed curriculum that's in the public schools is coming from Planned Parenthood. It may just have a different name on it. It may be branded by somebody else, but it's heavily influenced by Planned Parenthood and their standards. So, you've got to figure out what's going on. And again, if you want it out, it's going to take a lot of public pressure. You've got to petition the school board. You've got to get signed petitions from around the community, from parents. You've got to get a parent group together, people that have students there. You've got to be the squeaky wheel. You've got to be the annoying parent at the school. Your kids are worth it. And it's worth protecting their modesty. Planned Parenthood is trying to break down their natural modesty. They're trying to break down, their natural morality. And I think that people don't understand how dangerous their sex ed program is. They're like, well, so what? They're teaching them about birth control. So what? Okay, this is why. So what? Planned Parenthood does not care anything about teaching your kids about birth control. They don't care anything about the gonorrhea and chlamydia rates in your community. The reason that they are in your children's school is because their sex ed program begins in kindergarten. So they're usually in a child's school by kindergarten or first grade. Now, they're not teaching them graphic sex ed in kindergarten. They're teaching them things that you would say, oh, that's not that bad. They're teaching them boundaries and, what's a safe touch, what's not a safe touch, things that we would teach our kids, right? But the reason that they're there is because they want to develop a relationship with your child at a very, very early age. And they're going to develop that relationship over years. Every year, they're going to come into your children's school, and it's going to be the same person year after year. And they're going to get to know your child. And then by the time your children start having, feelings of sexuality, they're wanting to explore their sexuality, hormones are in high gear, right? They're like 9, 10, 11 years old. These girls are starting their menses. Boys are going through puberty. Planned Parenthood is going to be there. And what they're going to tell these kids is, you know what? You can't trust your parents to talk to them about this information, but you can trust me. I've known you since you were in kindergarten. I've known you since you were this big. You can trust me. You can't trust your parents. They don't understand what you're going through. They're old. They're like antiques. They're not going to get it. I get it. You can talk to me. And anytime you need anything, you come to my clinic and I'll help you. And by the way, I'll help you for free, and your parents will never find out you were there. Okay? I know this happens because, guys, I taught sex ed in the public school system, and this is the exact same stuff that I used to say to kids. So I know this is happening because I was one of the people that said it. Once your child is 11, 12, 13 years old, our hope is to have them on some sort of hormonal birth control method. And our goal is really to get them on the pill, because the pill has the highest human error failure rate. And I'm almost 40 years old. If you asked me to take a pill at the same time every day within an hour window, I would fail. So if you ask a 12-year-old to do that, she's going to fail. And Planned Parenthood also knows that. They know that their own statistics state that 54% of women who have abortions were using contraception at the time that they got pregnant. They know the answer is not birth control. They know the answer is self-control. But self-control doesn't make them any money. Birth control does, and particularly the failure of that birth control. That's what makes them money. And they joke about kids abstaining. They say, oh, well, and now I have to talk about abstinence, but we know nobody does that. We know that everybody's having sex, and that's totally fine. That's how they talk about abstinence, and they make fun of the kids who are planning to choose abstinence. So our hope is that by the time that your child is 16 years old, she will have already had an abortion. She will have already had her first abortion, and you won't know anything about it. Because guess what? Even with all the great pro-life legislation in your state, if maybe you have that, in every state where there are parental notification or parental consent laws, the Supreme Court has ruled that there must be something called judicial bypass. And judicial bypass is essentially a rubber stamp for a minor to have an abortion with the approval of a judge. And they shop for that judge. The abortion industry knows what judge to go to who will just rubber stamp that form. And so you can drop your child off at school one day, your 15-year-old kid off at school one day, And the school nurse or the school counselor or a teacher or the principal or whoever can take your child into an abortion clinic. Your child can have an invasive medical surgical procedure, can go back home that day, can be dropped back off at school by 3:30 that day. You pick up your child from school at 3:30, they go home, and you have no idea that your grandchild was just killed by the abortion industry. Guys, it happens every week. It happens all the time. And parents don't even know that it's going on. Now, the school can't give your kid a Tylenol without calling you and getting written permission, but they can take your child into an abortion clinic and kill their child. Okay. After they get out of high school, they're going to go to college. Oh, and by the way, they have that first abortion. Guess what birth control we're going to put them on? We're going to put them on the same pills because we know it's going to fail them again. And we hope that it will. And the hope is that by the time she's in college, she will have had her second abortion, because college is no time to have a baby, right? And it's so hard to have a baby and be a student. And we scare them into having an abortion. And we tell them all the things that they can't do and how they can't be successful and have a child. You'll never be able to graduate and have a child. It's just too hard. So we exploit their vulnerability. We exploit their weakness. And hopefully by the time she graduates college, she will have had her second abortion. And then she's going to start her career. Oh, and we put her on those pills again. And our hope is by the time she's 30 years old, your child will have had 3 abortions at one of our facilities. That's the goal. Because, you can't have a successful career and have a baby in tow. You're never going to be a lawyer if you're a single mom and you have a baby. See, we exploit their fear and their vulnerability and their weakness. And we tell them that they can't. And the pro-life movement is here to tell them that they can. And that's the difference, because we are really trying to empower women. They are trying to push women down.
Mic drop on that. I don't know. I mean, yes, amen. Everything you said. That's exactly what we try to say all the time on college and high school campuses, that empowered women empower other women to choose life, to say, you can do this. You are strong enough. And we're not saying it's going to be easy, but we will stand there with you, and you don't have to choose destruction. You don't have to give in to your fears. I feel that all the time, like that's our number one thing that's often holding us back. It holds pro-lifers back from even getting involved in the pro-life movement is fear. She chooses abortion out of fear, and we have to conquer our fear, because our fear does not come from our creator. All right, Abby, I know you've got kids. My kids are like staring at me, waiting for when they can come in my office. So I know we have to wrap this up. I did want to ask one more question that we got in. A woman asked, how can we reach inner city women in Black communities for the pro-life movement?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're going to have to go to them, right? And they're not going to come to us. We're going to have to go to them. Oh, and by the way, we're probably going to have Black women go to them because they don't want to see like my ghostly white face in their neighborhood telling them what they should do. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have to partner with strong Black pro-life women. Pregnancy centers are going to have to step out of their comfort zone. They're going to have to start opening satellite centers in inner city neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to start going into places that are uncomfortable for us. And that's in general. I mean, that's just the way it is. Just like you said, we will not be successful if we live in fear. We can't be scared to be messy, right? And to get in this mess of life with people. And there's an amazing woman, Sylvia Matthews in Houston, and she opened up a pregnancy center in the 5th Ward of Houston, which is, it's a scary place. And she is an amazing Black woman. She was even scared to open up a place down there. And she did. Their windows got shot out a couple times. They had people come in and rob their center. But you know what? Every time somebody would say, you just need to close up, she would say, no, we're going to keep going. This is telling me this is exactly where we need to be. And they have had such success in that center because they persevered and because they have good leadership. And so, we need to find people around us who are willing to go into those neighborhoods with us. And we have to ourselves be aware of the resources that are available to those women. So don't just go down there and say, you don't need to have an abortion. Don't have an abortion. And then walk away. You need to know where their local WIC office is. You need to know how to get them on Medicaid. You need to know where the food stamp office is. Can they qualify for TANF? I mean, you've got to figure all that stuff out to really help empower them to make a choice for life.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely right. All right, I'll let you go. I want to do a quick rebuttal. What do you say when you make the case to a pro-life family member, friend, that, abortion, Planned Parenthood should be defunded because they're the nation's largest abortion vendor, they're the abortion Goliath, that they don't deserve a sport, and a friend says, yeah, I agree, but they do a lot of good services. What is the quick pro-life rebuttal to that?
There's so many things you can say. But I mean, you could go into well, it's not 3%. You could go into this long spiel about it, right? Usually the thing that I say is, okay, so if you found out that a business you love, only 3% of the time they are killing puppies in the back office, would you be like, well, that's cool, I'll still use them, right? Or if you had a pan of brownies and you found out that only 3% of poop was in the brownie, would you eat those brownies? It's only 3%. It's just a little bit of poop. You won't mind, right? Because it's just a little tiny bit, right? No, of course not. Because when you got poop in the brownies, the whole pan of brownies is bad. When you are killing people, whether it's one person, whether it's 3% of your service, the whole service is bad. The whole organization is bad. So go with the poop thing. That makes people laugh, and it sort of breaks up the conversation. It doesn't make it so tense. But seriously, I mean, like, if you found out, if I found out that some guy in my neighborhood is like a really nice guy, he's a really good guy, and only 3% of his time he's a serial killer, would we be like, yeah, that's cool, like, Bob's nice, we're just gonna let it go? Of course not. So why do we give the abortion industry the pass that we would not give to any other organization, we would not give to anybody else in our life?
That's it. Thank you, Abby. You were fantastic, and I feel like I could have this conversation for hours because there's so many questions I have about the abortion industry, how we can make an impact in our communities, how we can sidewalk counsel. But thank you for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. And thank you for all of you who joined us to listen to this conversation, who submitted questions. We've got a lot of resources for you, and resources that we mentioned. Check out Abby's Pro-Love Ministries, Lifeline, right? I'm saying it right. I always mess it up.
Loveline.
Loveline is an amazing ministry where women can contact them and any resource they need. Loveline helps those women, helps women in crisis know they're not alone and find solutions in their community for them. Check out, and then there were None Ministries. Check out Sidewalk Advocates for Life. Make sure, we were talking about sex ed curriculum. There's a wonderful organization that I support along with all these other organizations called Healing the Culture. We released a blog today on Students for Life's website of some free pro-life homeschooling curriculum now. Healing the Culture has made all of their curriculum free online. And it's amazing, and it kind of gets to the root of a lot of these issues, abortion, assisted suicide. So check them out. If you've got time, go to studentsforlife.org/virtual, sign up for one of our free 5-week virtual training courses. You can also go to studentsforlifehq.com and log in and get all the video and guides and all the samples you need to get started in your community and on your campus. Thank you all for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you next week. I'm going to be talking with Jay Watts of Merely Human Ministries, and it's going to be on effective education, how to effectively change minds online, which we all are on right now. Bye, guys.